What is up, my ducks and drakes? Welcome to the Crota Lake. Today we are reading chapter 7 and 8 of Bad Guy, a Sanderside's fanfic by Bekka911 on Wattpad. If you'd like to support the author or the book itself, you may go to the description below for all of the links to all of the good things, such as that. All trigger warnings will also be in the description below for this series, if you did not know prior. And with that, let us go on to Chapter 7. Patton knocked hesitantly on Anxiety's black door. Nobody had seen the trait since he appeared with Thomas, and despite his cruel words, Patton needed to know if he was okay. He'd even brought cookies. "Anxiety?" he called, knocking again. He heard no movement, and made his decision. "Anxiety, I'm coming in." The room never ceased to surprise him. Last time he was in here, he was too occupied to notice the details. Details like the silver glittery paint that tinted the walls. Details like the music lyrics scrawled on the said walls in different types of pens. It was a chaotic kind of beautiful. "Get out." His heart clenched at the coldness in Anxiety's voice. "I brought cookies, kiddo. I'm worried." Anxiety stared at him, ickily, then seemed to deflate. "Fine. Look, for what it's worth, I'm sorry about how I acted towards you. I went to the studio. I know you took the pills off him once you find out." Patton couldn't decide if he should feel guilty, relieved, or sad that Anxiety was forgiving him. Only him. Patton wasn't enough of an idiot to miss the way Anxiety was focusing his apology on only Patton. Clearly his forgiveness hadn't quite stretched to Roman yet. And Logan? "Logan, sorry," he said quietly, and instantly he knew he'd lost whatever opening Anxiety had given. The darker side's face shut down, a sleek mask of disinterest snapping down over his features and hiding his emotions. "Whatever," Anxiety sneered, folding his arms. "He could be sorry all he wants. I honestly couldn't care any less, as long as he stays away from me." But Patton knew it was a lie. Anxiety cared too much about it, and it wasn't letting him heal. It was a festering wound inside the side, and it would never let him forgive or forget. "Thomas feels horrible," Patton pushed, needing to break Anxiety a little more, because at least if Anxiety broke, he could be put back together. Anxiety chuckled darkly. "He feels horrible because I'm still here." "That's not true!" "Isn't it?" Anxiety advanced on Patton, his eyes glinting like steel. There was a manic wildness to him, like a wounded defensive animal desperately trying to get out of a corner. "I make things worse. I pressure him, stop him from sleeping. I stop him from socializing. I am the bad guy, Patton. Didn't you know?" Anxiety grinned a sharp grin, and Patton stumbled away. This wasn't Anxiety, not the one Patton knew. He'd been wrong. Anxiety was broken already, but Anxiety had turned the sharp, jagged pieces outward, and pursuing him would only mean impaling oneself. Patton didn't stand a chance. He'd lose. So, he gave Anxiety one last look, and disappeared out the door, making sure Anxiety didn't see the disappointment that was stabbing in his chest. Anxiety dropped his head into his hands as Patton left, feeling the hot anger drain away as quickly as it came. Why? Why was he like this? He shoved everybody away, burned his lifeline, and let himself alone in the ocean full of tears. A disease. That's all he was. Some disorder that needed medication to be handled. He was nothing to anyone. Just there, existing, but not living. He was drowning in his thoughts and his anger and his stupid need for approval. He was drowning in pain and wounds that decorated his already bruised heart. God, he just wanted to feel loved. Was that really so bad? "You're not wanted by them." He straightened himself up and wiped his face over, fixing up his makeup. If he was drowning, he just had to learn how to swim. That was all. Or maybe he just let himself go under. Roman's heart broke as he found Patton crying in the kitchen. The fanciful side instantly rushed to the blue-clothed man and swept him into a hug, breathing deeply as Patton's body shook in his arms. Patton hiccuped, unable to finish his sentence, but Roman knew. Shh, he whispered. He'll be okay. Somehow, neither could believe his words. Anxiety triple-checked to make sure nobody was there, and when he was sure the coast was clear, appeared in Patton's room. The thing he was searching for had to be in here. Patton wouldn't trust anyone else with it. With them. It only took him a minute of snooping before he found them, tucked away safely in their little bottle. With his prize tucked in his hoodie, he instantly relocated to his room, breathing heavily. To have such power in his hands. He shook his head. Too bad he couldn't take the pills directly. To do so would endanger Thomas, and he couldn't do that. He physically could not end his existence. It wasn't possible. With a wry smile, Anxiety appeared in Thomas's bedroom and put the bottle of anxiety medication in plain sight. If he couldn't do it himself, his host would have to do it for him. Chapter 8. Anxiety paced around his room, muttering about anything he could think of to keep this smothering silence at bay. Too much had been happening. Too many people had betrayed him. Too much of his heart was broken. His door opened, startling him. Logan stood on the threshold, hands clasped in front of him in an attempt to hide the shaking. It didn't really work, but Anxiety didn't say anything. Unlike some people, he knew how to maintain his hold over his temper. Logan, Anxiety greeted, testily stepping towards his bed. How can I help you? Logan floundered for a moment, his brown eyes unusually bright with emotion. I wanted to check on you, the logical side said, almost hesitant. Anxiety raised an eyebrow. Clearly, the situation was having more of an effect on Logan than what everyone thought. It made sense, in a way. Feelings and emotion were the bane of Logan's existence, so when there was a clear ambience of them, the side suffered. Thanks, he said uncomfortably. Yeah, I'm recovering pretty well after almost being eradicated. I wish to explain myself. Anxiety waved a hand. You really don't have to. I don't want to hear it. Something flickered in Logan's eyes, a fiery sort of indignation. Anxiety frowned. You were having detrimental effects on Thomas's lifestyle, Logan said, and the hesitancy was gone from his voice. Something steely and unforgiven was there instead. I considered all options and decided that taking the medication would help improve Thomas's lifestyle the most. So you willingly told him to take something that would hurt me? Anxiety expected Logan to falter at the question. Instead, Logan adjusted his glasses and let out a slow breath. We've never had to deal with this situation before, Logan said calmly, the clinical coldness back on his face. His brown eyes were blank and empty. Never before have we had to contemplate medication to subdue one of Thomas's sides. No, none of us had ever affected him so negatively. Forgive me for not having all the data. Anxiety sneered, feeling a defensive hostility rise in his chest. Nice to know I'm just an experiment to you. What else are you supposed to be? Logan was completely detached now. Any sense of guilt and emotion pushed deep down. Anxiety looked at this Logan and could understand how the decision was reached to take anxiety medication. Anxiety, none of us have an effect on you. We can't minimize your harmful effects. If taking this medication made Thomas better, then I would encourage him to take it daily. So why don't you? That got Logan to falter slightly. Because I didn't expect the impact on you to be so severe. I'm not overly fond of you, Anxiety, but I don't wish you dead. Besides, Thomas loses all common sense when you're incapacitated. Now that we know what happens with the medication, I'm confident I can find another solution. He really was just another experiment. Anxiety almost choked on the hysterical laugh that bubbled up in his throat. Logan really had no idea about the emotional trauma Anxiety had. Logan was ignorant to the fact that normal emotional beings generally don't take well to being poisoned and betrayed. But if it was all for Thomas, then Anxiety really failed him? If it was for Thomas, why couldn't Anxiety just suck it up? Logan had already said that he couldn't let their host take more of the medication, so Anxiety didn't have to worry. He just had to move past the hurt, and the guilt, and the anger, and... Okay, maybe he couldn't forgive. Maybe he couldn't move on. Maybe Thomas should just chug the bottle of pills. I intend to sleep, Anxiety said blandly, and Logan blinked. If you would be so kind to vacate my space and close the door behind you, I would appreciate it. Logan dipped his head, swallowing in uncertainty, and his registered the dead undertones of Anxiety's voice. I apologize for the suffering you went through, he said quietly. I truly didn't intend to cause you harm. Anxiety scoffed. Yeah, okay. Goodbye, Logan. When Logan closed the door, Anxiety felt it in his soul, and it opened the floodgates of panic. The wave of sheer terror built around his heart, cresting and spreading and waiting. Anxiety braced for it, because he was tired already, and this might just knock him out. The swirling mass of frantic energy swelled, and he waited, and nothing happened. Anxiety let out a strangled gasp as he felt for that wave, only to feel the waves recoil from his touch and dissipate into his blood. His panic attacks never dissipated. So where did this one go? He frowned down at his hands, which looked skeletal in the limited lighting. Maybe that medication had more of an effect than they all thought. Interesting. Thank you all so much for listening. If you would like to continue listening to the series, please subscribe and hit that bell so you're notified next week when the next 2 chapters upload. If you'd like to support the author and the book, the links will be in the description. There's also a link in the description to a Google form where you can recommend fics for the future. It could be from any fanfiction service. It can't just be from Wattpad. It could be from AO3, Tumblr, just anywhere, fanfiction.net, anywhere you get your fanfiction. It could be from there, and you do not need to be the one that wrote it. It could be from any author. Just recommend fics. I need more recommendations. Please recommend. All my social media links will also be in the description, along with my TikTok, which is also one of my social medias, where I do Senior Sides cosplays, if you'd like to follow along with that. Thank you so much for listening, and much like Logan trying to form words, do your best.